Hey, welcome to what is this even called? Oh, the Real Estate Oregon Trail, the night edition. I've got my friend Deb on the phone here. Say hi, Deb.
Hi, everyone. Excited to be here.
Yeah, me too, Deb. Welcome to the inaugural maiden voyage of this little idea where we record for our friends on the interwebs what you're kind of going through as what I call an investor 101. You're the 101 level. You own one of your homes. Now you're in the Denver area, Colorado area, but you're looking to buy your first or your next property, and then you're going to turn your first property, the one you live in now, into the rental. That's the plan as it stands right now, right?
Yes,
Okay.
but I would consider myself even a pre-beginner,
Oh, okay. A
like a
pre-beginner.
100 level,
Oh, the 100 level. Okay.
unless there's anything below that.
No, I don't think you're the 100. Here's why I don't think that, because you've made a decision. I say the 100 levels are the ones that they're still floating around and like, do I want to be a day trader? Do I want to invest in underwater seashell manufacturing? Ooh, what about all the products they're going to be making on the moon one day? Maybe I want to invest in that. Okay.
Elon Musk.
But they are straight up all over the place. Very unfocused, very unclear, very not sure. And that's not you. It doesn't sound like. I mean, you're working toward this goal, right?
I am. There are days where
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a squirrel and I go on track and I
Yeah.
keep thinking, well, I could go down this
I
path,
know, I
or
know.
maybe I should do this. But I got a great real estate agent, and when
Mm-hmm.
I send him properties, he's
Mm-hmm.
like, he reminds me, he's like, no, that's not part of what you want to do
Amen.
or your focus. So definitely
Excellent.
get a strong agent.
Yeah, get a really good agent is great advice. I love that. And you said your agent is an investor themselves.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was very key in finding
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's done this process and has guided other people to do it.
Right, right. So he has like deep and dear experience in the exact same thing you want to do. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's a wonderful. You are right. That is a valuable tool that you have, probably your most valuable tool that you have to execute this and to keep you on track. And yeah, and so, and again, I always like to say, like, especially because you're working with an agent, any other conversations you have, even with me, are really secondary to his leadership, because what that does is it creates even deeper analysis paralysis. It,
It does.
right. You go to the fire group and they're like, do this, and then you go home for Thanksgiving and your mom's like, do this, and then you watch HGTV and they're like, do this, and then you listen to podcasts and all these big real estate people are like, do this.
Exactly. And I won't lie, I've seen some properties where I'm like, I can do a flip. I've seen HDTV. I can do it myself. And of course he's like, Deb.
That's wonderful. Yeah, yeah. A good leader is like your guardrails on your bowling lane. Keeps the ball in the lane so you can stay focused, because there is so much like different strategy out there, you know, and
There
and and
is.
you really got to qualify yourself. But if you don't know how to qualify yourself, which a lot of beginners for sure don't know how to do, even people that are more experienced, like even as professionals, like lawyers have lawyers, doctors have doctors, right? Realtors have
Exactly.
realtors, therapists have therapists, because it's hard to just counsel yourself. So, but for the 101 level, it's a lot harder because you just don't know what you don't know, and you're trying to discern and dissect and organize all this information you're getting. So,
And it's a lot of information. It is incredibly overwhelming.
wow.
Um, it is even when you're starting, because people say, hey, get into this, or just get into a condo or a townhome, but no, you don't want to do that because of the fees. And then what area should I look at? Is this an up and coming area? um, And then even the individual units,
Yeah.
you might find something, I find pockets of neighborhoods, a great neighborhood, and then one neighborhood over is not so great. So,
Yeah, I know. I know. And I've been thinking about, because you've mentioned analysis paralysis a few times, just in our casual conversations. And you've also mentioned, like, now you're talking about traveling nurses, which you've talked about that before, but that's what I wanted to dissect a little bit with you tonight. Okay.
okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
So I'm going to ask you some questions and help you kind of work through this, or hopefully. Okay. So where did you come up with this idea? Where'd you hear this about
I
this?
heard it in two places.
Okay.
One from my realtor,
Okay.
because when we were looking at split levels
Uh-huh.
where I could live on the upper level and
Yeah.
then rent the level below,
Yeah.
he thought, if you keep it furnished, you might look at it as a midterm rental.
Mm-hmm.
And then he mentioned a website where it does kind of target traveling nurses or actually just medical staff.
Okay.
So looking at the website, it looks like on average that you can charge a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, or you can charge more than you would, let's say just, a month-to-month type rental.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm trying to figure out,
Mm-hmm.
do I want to do furnished or unfurnished? So again, another,
I know.
something else to throw into the pot to make things more confusing.
Well said. So the fact that you even know that, then maybe maybe what's in your gut is the good old fashioned KISS. Keep it simple solution is what's popping up in my gut, because the thing is, like, and now granted, hearing that it came from your realtor, where's the other place it came from?
The Money Mustache Group, where I met you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. So which is a group of people that are, not all of them, but some of them are definitely advanced in understanding financial aptitudes and freedom. Some of them are on their way, and some of them are just in the group for various reasons that they're not whatever, they're maybe the really beginning ones, or they just heard about the meetup and they want to show up or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so you've got a pretty good range of people in there, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so the person or whoever kind of tossed that idea around, did they have direct experience with it, or was it more like just a discussion?
As you know, the format of the meeting is they go around and they ask, does anybody have any questions?
Mm-hmm.
So after, at the end, a couple people who have had, I guess they do have, again, they're beginners. They have maybe one rental, suggested, this is an option, is fully furnished. Because again, I look at my location and I am kind of strategically placed within 4 hospitals.
Okay.
So that was kind of one of my, why I was intrigued
Yeah.
by that particular website.
I gotcha. Okay, so it's more like, yeah, an idea, more like a theory in the group.
Exactly.
More like a theory.
Yes.
Okay. And then did the group idea come before or after your realtor suggested it? Which one came first?
My realtor came first. 'Cause
Okay.
we're looking at split levels, and he
Yeah.
goes, it wouldn't take much to furnish this,
Mm-hmm.
and you can get up to 20% more in rental income.
Okay. Okay, so here's a good exercise I would suggest if you haven't done it yet, to rule it in or rule it out. Okay? This is in the process of discovery rather than ruminate. Okay? So what I would suggest is consider, like, just going into a good old fashioned spreadsheet. Okay? And if you think the market rent, be conservative. So if you think the market rent for the downstairs level would be 1,600 or 2,000, whatever, mark it up by 20%. That would be 2,400, or okay, whatever 20% of 1,600 is. 16 times 2, 32, 16, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, 1920 or 2,400. And then And then like add the columns for both of those, okay? And then look at your monthly gain and then your yearly gain, okay? And I,
Right.
I would probably make another column and just mark it up by 10% and then do another column and mark it up by 30%. So you got a range, okay?
Mhm.
And then you want to go and figure out, this is again all speculatory. What you're doing is called a pro forma analysis, okay?
Okay.
And a pro forma analysis is what investors do when they're analyzing the financial gain of a potential pathway, okay? Which is what has been suggested to you. And so what you're doing is flushing it out financially to see if it makes sense, because there'd be really no other reason to do this other than financial as an investor,
Right.
okay? Because our emotions aren't what they are when we buy homes as a buyer. So this is a financial decision. Or the only other reason you would do something like this niche market plan would be if you had, if I don't know, like you already had a true connection with this somehow, some way. Like I wouldn't even suggest it should be like a heart posture thing, because in that case, you would just go into charity work and find a way to serve in that environment. Like, say you just had this heartstring that said, I want to help traveling nurses because my mom was one and they're very near and dear to my heart. Okay. You still might not make a whole business model designed around that for that reason. You might instead say, okay, I'm going to volunteer in a place that supports and helps and loves on nurses, traveling nurses. Okay. Versus come up with a business model to support that. I've seen people do that, and I'm not necessarily sure I agree with it all the time. Um, or if you come from a family or again some kind of background that says like this business model makes sense and I already know about it and I know this is the path I want to go. But since the second and third option aren't your thing, this is a financial decision, okay? So make a spreadsheet and then you're going to figure out what you think it's going to cost to furnish it. And a really good place for that would be Airbnb or VRBO.
Oh, that's great info.
I bet they have already financial models that tell you what that would be. Okay. And then you're going to put that in your spreadsheet. And remember, when you furnish a place, you're just talking about forks, pots, pans, washer, dryer, detergent, toilet paper, light bulbs. I'm talking about replacement light bulbs. You're probably going to have more wear and tear. So whatever you would normally estimate for repairs on a property, and I just average around $100 a month, $1,200 a year per property based on the age of construction of my assets and just the history of what I know things cost. So times 4 properties, that's $4,800 a year, about $5,000 a year that I allocate for just kind of ancillary repairs. Sometimes I have less than that, which is the ideal goal. But then the years I have less, it covers me when I have capital improvements like the air conditioner breaks and it costs $8,000. Okay. So, but you probably will have a little more wear and tear
Why do
because
you think there's more wear? Why do you think there's more wear and tear?
because you're going to have more tenants moving in and moving out than a traditional model where the tenant stays 12, 24, 36, 48 months. Traveling nurse contracts, 3 months, 2 months, 6 months. Maybe they renew. I would guess they might not regularly. Sometimes they might. These are speculation. Now I want to say I did have a traveling nurse in my first condo, and it was a 6-month term. And she didn't take good care of the place because she didn't really have any skin in the game, because the traveling nurse company paid for her deposit and she wasn't paying rent. So it's kind of like when you stay in a hotel, I'm just curious, are you a little extra messy and a little less careful with that thing than you would be if you were renting an apartment where you had a deposit that you put down and it's the place where you actually live?
I'm actually a pretty careful person, so
Okay. Okay, well, I'm not. And I've noticed when I stay in apartments or Airbnbs, not like I'm all about wrecking it. But for example, even when I go out of town and I rent a car, you know, It's not like I want to not be nice to that car, but I just don't seem to care about that car in the same way I do care about my own car when I'm at home. I might try a little bit of a tighter parking space. Um, I might drive a little faster and rev up the engine a little quicker to get where I want to go. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. But it's been my experience when people have stake in the game and skin in the game, which is their own money, they tend to take care of things a little bit better. And I've seen that even with Section 8 tenants as well. Very much so, because they don't pay their rent. Some Section 8 tenants pay a portion of their rent, but the government pays the larger portion typically, and the deposit is typically less, if anything, than a normal paying tenant without Section 8 assistance. So I'm just trying to say, when somebody doesn't have their own money in it, sometimes they don't treat it in the same way they would if they did. And sometimes traveling nurses, that's the case because the company pays for it. So they treat it more like a hotel.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm also, the decision is either turning my current place into a fully furnished option or the split level.
Yeah.
So the other option is in a split level. They are staying with you. So my thought process is that they might be a little bit more careful.
Well, they might be, but you're going to be dealing with a lot of different people if that's your model, right?
That's true.
Right? So in theory, one or two, but I mean, are 100% of the people going to be like that? What do you think?
If it was 100%, I'd go to Vegas.
There you go.
Those odds.
Very unlikely. You're dealing with people. People are pretty unpredictable, you know? So, I think and then I would I would make that spreadsheet and I would lay out what the real numbers look like, and that's what I would do. And I would see if it makes sense financially to go through something that is a unique and very niche business model and that focuses you on, does it make sense? That's just the question. I mean, remove every other question. Does that make sense financially? And if so, what is that number? I mean, what do you really think you're going to profit? And then, I would say in a normal situation, you typically have one tenant every 2 years, or 5 tenants in 10 years is a pretty typical turn rate in typical rental property investing. With nurses, again, do some research and find out what's the average traveling nurse stay. And if they leave early because they get homesick or they get sick or the hospital doesn't need them, are you still paid, for the term? I would assume you would be, but I don't know. And then how many on average tenants do you have in a year? Is it 4? Is it 2? Is it 6? And then how much vacancy do you think you're going to have between them? Because you probably are going to have more vacancy is my gut, because you're going to have more turn, just like an Airbnb,
Right.
Yeah. And then you want to, so once you analyze the financial side, and you want to be very conservative, okay? So and you can do different columns, like I said, like if they think, if the website says you only have, one tenant every 6 months, 2 tenants a year, I would put in 2 months of vacancy in there, where normally I would only estimate 1 month of vacancy if I was looking for a 12-month tenant. And then, and that's what I would do. And then you could make 2 columns, like I said, do 1 month and 2 month vacancy, because you want to know what that expense is, because you're going to turn your unit more,
Right.
And then who's going to show the tenants? Do they look at it or do they not? And if they do, if you don't have a property manager, because the property manager is actually not going to do that, because that's a specialty business. I mean, there might be a property manager that does that. I don't know of any, but maybe there's some out there. But that means you're going to be the manager, if not. And that would be another question. Do you want to ask yourself, do you really want to manage a tenant that you're sharing a house with, that's a traveling nurse, that's not paying rent and getting rent paid by a company? Is that really a relationship you want to go in with in such an intimate way like that.
Hmm.
That's a lot, I think.
It is.
And I've seen those things not go right more than I've seen, or wrong. Okay, let me say that again. I've seen those things go wrong because, in your home, you want to feel very, very safe. That's like the number one thing people want above everything is safety in their home. Would you agree with that?
I 100% agree.
Above everything, right? Every client I've ever met is the number one thing. And they don't come out. I mean, it's not like every client shows up and it's like, I want to be safe. It's not. But once we get through the needs and the wants, that's at the top every time. Okay. So is that really an environment you want to expose yourself to when you don't have to get another $100 or $200 more a month in rent when it could go terribly wrong? you know?
Right.
Because one thing I've learned is it's just hard to be friends with random people that you live with.
Oh my gosh, that makes a lot of sense. So definitely something to think about. And like you said, the spreadsheet, you know.
Yeah.
But even with the spreadsheet, you're mentioning a lot of qualitative things, which doesn't necessarily have a price tag.
Exactly.
Feeling safe in your home.
Yeah.
Higher turnover. Well, that one is qualitative, but
that one has both.
Cost?
I think that one has probably both traits, qualitative and quantitative, because the turnover, because yes, it'll have a financial element, but also that kind of leads me to my second component for you to think about is your ability, your time, your energy, and your effort. Is your job allowable to that flexibility, where you're renewing and you're analyzing and you're reviewing and you're negotiating 2, 3, 4 leases a year? Are you working with multiple location companies or one? Do you have to approve the tenant? Do they fill out an application? If so, are you reviewing those applications multiple times a year? What's the move in and the move out going to be? Every time they move in, you're going to need to do a move in condition report with lots of photos. And every time they move out, you're going to need to do a move out condition report because you're going to need to itemize the security deposit. And you're going to need photo evidence. And you're going to need to know what they did and what they didn't do and prove it if it comes to be a debate. So that's going to happen. And you might have quick tenant turns, where one tenant moves out on a Friday and the new tenant moves in on a Saturday. How are you going to get the carpets cleaned? How are you going to get the house cleaned? Is that going to be conducive to your work schedule? Do you have that kind of flexibility? Because those things seem to happen like Christmas Eve,
Wow, that is a lot to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, and because you have so many decisions to make, I mean, I would even say your biggest decision really beyond that is where are you going to live? Because you're not sure of the whole plan yet, right? You're kind of like, I could live here. I could live in the new place. I could live in the old place. If I live in the new place, I could live on the top level. I could share the place. I could share common areas. We could do this split level. Or I could stay in my old place and then rent out the new place,
Or stay in the shed in the backyard.
There you go. That's a lot of choices right there.
It is. There is. You're right. I have been going back and forth on a lot of those things.
Yeah.
But I like you said, keep it simple. Just keep it simple. And so, especially if I'm a new person, do I really need to be dealing with the advanced, complicated things now? So,
if I could do my life over again, my answer would inherently be no. My answer, I would wear a t-shirt that said work smarter, not harder every day of my life. I didn't start wearing that t-shirt until probably about 4 years ago, but I would have worn it a lot earlier because I tried to do everything so complicated and so niche and so specialized and so unique. And that stuff just burnt me out. And it wasn't worth it, And I tried to do all these things, and I went so wide, and I was like, so many strategies, and I took so much advice, and I listened to so many people, and it just, yeah, it created this incredible anxiety, you know, and it made it hard to execute. It made it hard to make a confident and clear decision. And it wasn't a lot of fun, you know. I was very hard on myself. I was very resentful of a lot of the decisions I made because I wasn't sure, because I didn't know who I was and what I stood for. And I was so busy just listening to everybody else that really didn't know, you know, but I thought they knew because they spoke well or something. But they didn't really have the experience or like truly could back it up. They were just throwing ideas around, you know, and I took the bait and I
Yes.
ran with it. I don't know why, because I was a people pleaser, probably. I mean, honestly, that is why. And I just didn't have that ability to be like, no, no, that thing, you know, that might work for you, doesn't work for me. I want to, you know, but at the same time, you don't know what you don't know because you're a new investor. So it's kind of one of those weird circuitous things. But if I could tell myself back then, I would just say, keep it simple. It's going to be okay. Because here's the thing. The key to getting ahead is getting started, and people get trapped in this analysis paralysis, Deb, and then they don't make a decision, and then they look back 3 years later and they still haven't bought a house.
Well, exactly. Just like in our group, one analysis or one suggestion was, have I done all the calculators? Does it make more sense to invest in the market than get a house? And all I kept thinking was, please don't add anything else.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know. And I think sometimes in those groups, oh, they have value, but at the same time they can really hurt, you know, because it's just people wanting to talk, 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 talk. But it's like, okay, at some point you got to stop talking and you got to take action to get ahead in life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you've really helped me with that, by the way.
Amen.
Keeping my focus.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, it is pretty common to have all these, you know, just, yeah, all these swirly, whirly ideas, you know. We live in the age of information, and it's only going to get crazier with AI and all the next level generation stuff that's coming. But I think that's what's even more important, to just be convicted and say, like, whatever you choose, if you choose traveling nurses and you change it in 2 years, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. What matters is you make a decision that you feel good about based on your process, and then you execute that decision, and then you give yourself permission to pivot should you need to. And you get rid of the double-mindedness as soon as you can, because that's the part that drives you crazy and makes you unable to move.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, good. Okay. So your next steps are spreadsheet, which should be pretty easy and pretty quick. That should
Yes.
not take 4 hours and 9 days and 2 years and 3 months.
You haven't met me yet.
Deb, better not. That should take you like an hour. Okay, maybe 2. Because again, you have to remember, the thing about a pro forma is it's not ever going to be right because you're speculating for the future.
Correct.
Yeah, you're just getting a general idea, because what it does is it puts pen to paper, because in theory, like, oh, I can make more money. Well, but when you really run the numbers, can you? And is it worth it?
Right.
That's what you're trying to figure out. That's just an analysis, okay? And then you're just going to look at the numbers. And if it doesn't jump off the page and you don't have another motivating reason, then you rule it out and you move on. You don't need to keep going back to it. You just make a decision and you move on, because what I call it is easy come, easy go, right? This isn't something you're tied to. These are ideas that were brought up. So they've come into your stratosphere. You've grabbed them. You're holding on to them. The question is, do you let them go back to where they came from, or do you continue to hold on and move forward toward that goal? That's what you're trying to do right now, is rule things in or rule things out.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So your financial analysis is your first thing. And then you're going to think about your own bandwidth, your time, your energy, your effort, your safety, all those things that like, you can't put a number on, but you just want to think about like, how much do I really want to put into this? And where does that sound like fun to me to do those things that Heather described? Or does that sound daunting to me?
It does. Eddie, if I have to do 10 extra steps where something would only take me 3 steps,
Okay.
why am I going to make it more complicated?
Right,
So
right.
that makes a lot of sense.
Right. That's really good. You already know how your brain works, right? You like an optimized life?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Then that's your core value. And then you fit it, and then you discern, does this pathway fit into my core value or does it not? And if it doesn't fit into your core value, it gets crossed off. And you make the agreement with yourself above everything. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks because they're not going to be doing the work. You are.
That's true.
And then you stand firm in that and you say, thanks for your opinion on that. I looked into it and I ruled it out. Next. And you move on. And if they try to go back, you say, yeah, we're not going to do that on this first one. Maybe that's for the future, but not today. Okay, next. And then you just pivot. You pivot the conversation and you get it away from that once you've made a decision.
Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the biggest thing what I'm hearing from you is that, I will be given a lot of advice, but even if I make a decision and it's not necessarily the perfect one, I can always change it. Or I can always, like you said, pivot.
Exactly. And I think it will never be the perfect one in a way because you just don't know what you don't know. And you try to make the best decision by doing the exercises I described and taking, advice in from leadership. Your realtor would be advice number 1. But that being said, he still has his perspective as an expert and a specialist, and he's just suggesting an idea. But you have to decide, is that the right pathway for me? Because I'm going to be the one doing the work.
Right. Or like you said, I'm the one who's going to be living with a stranger.
Exactly. And I'm working with some different coaches right now, business coaches, professional coaches, and personal coaches, marketing coaches. And they give me ideas all the time because that's what they love to do. And I have to discern what I'm going to do, what I'm going to take and what I'm not going to take. And I'm pivoting them all the time because they don't understand that I'm going to be the one doing the work, making the investment, So right. Sometimes people just want to be there to be like, oh yeah, I gave her that idea, But at the end of the day, it all falls on me, to carry it out because the execution is by far the hardest part. The idea is not the hard part. Carrying it out and executing is the hard part of it.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And nobody knows you like you. So you just have to decide what lights you up and what makes sense for you financially. And yeah, it's never going to be wrong ever, even if someone claims that it is, because you didn't run all the reports and do all the things and do all the research till 2048, there's always going to be those people, but rarely people that are successful will say things like that because they're too busy being successful,
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So, Miss Deb, well, glad we got to chat.
Well, this is wonderful and wonderful advice.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to hear that, and we'll see if our viewers enjoy it and get something out of it themselves. So, what advice do you have for, like, I guess just getting started,
Getting started. I've had years of talking myself out. It was always, The market's too hot right now. Everybody's outbidding each other because the money is cheap. Well, now it's expensive and there's less on the market. There's always something to talk yourself out.
Yeah,
So.
you're right. I know, right? Yeah, yeah, I know.
But what you do is you meet somebody like you who keeps me focused, especially when I'm a squirrel and I go chasing squirrels somewhere. It helps to have somebody to keep you grounded.
Yeah, yeah, it really does to just. Yeah, I agree. That's why I hire coaches, because even though, yes, they give me a lot of ideas, but once we make a decision, right, as coach and coached, we work toward that goal and they're accountable. And then when I veer a little bit off, after the agreement's made, when I veer a little off, they're like, what's happening? Where are you going? Why are you changing? Right? And I'm like, because I changed my mind. They're like, nope, you made a commitment. I'm like, okay. Then we get back on board, we get refocused, and we get after it, you know?
Exactly.
All right, Miss Deb. Well, have a great night. Thanks for doing this. This has been a lot of fun.
This has been a lot of fun. I always enjoy chatting with you. You always have great advice.
Thanks, Deb. I appreciate you so much too. And I'm excited for you to get started. And when you said you've been thinking about this for years, how many years would you say?
I would probably say at least 5 years.
Okay.
When I initially bought this place, I wanted it to be my home. But then as time has gone on, the numbers just make sense to convert it into a rental. And at this point in my life, I do want a single family home.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. And that is a beautiful plan. And I think you have it. You just said the plan. At this point in my life, I want a single family home, and I'm going to convert my other property into a rental. So lock that in and move forward. And then your next decision now to make is about your traveling nurse plan. Rule it in or rule it out so you can get clear on what you want.
Right.
Okay, Deb. Well, I'll talk to you later, my friend. Have a good night. Okay, bye. Well, that was fun. Rocky, what do you think? Did you enjoy that? Well, thanks for joining us on After Hours with Real Estate Oregon Trail. I hope you enjoyed our first official voyage of the hotline. I don't know, of that niche market conversation, but I hope you can take the principles and apply them to other parts of your own real estate investing journey, whether you're a 100 like Deb thought she was, but she's not because she's already made the decision and she's able and willing, or the 101, which is buying the first rental, or the 102, which is buying the second rental, and so on and so on. I'm just here to serve. So serve. I hope I did. Please join us on our next Real Estate Oregon Trail, or the other series we have called From the Desk of the Investor. And we're just going to continue to answer questions like Deb's and others that we come across from investors trying to get started, because the key to getting ahead is getting started. Okay, Real Estate Oregon Trail Late Night Edition. We will see you on another evening. Sleep well and sweet investing dreams.